The human body functions as a system in constant motion, a shifting network of energy where states are temporary and structures are perpetually dissolving. Modern Eastern medical practice often struggles with an over-reliance on facto, standardized clinical protocols designed to treat static diseases with fixed formulas. This reliance often stems from a semantic shift in training. While Western Bengcheng identifies a fixed disease endpoint, the Eastern Huicheng identifies a syndrome, a snapshot of a patient's pathology at one specific moment in time. Biancheng Lunqi is the active calculus used to track this movement. It requires the physician to determine the exact coordinates of a syndrome as it moves along a physiological timeline. When a practitioner applies a fixed textbook formula to this dynamic timeline, they risk treating a stage of the illness that the patient's body has already moved past. Modern Western medicine defines normal by aggregating scattered data points into statistical averages. The resulting bell curve establishes a generalized range for health based on vast populations. Eastern medicine rejects this macroscopic average. It assumes that a global statistical standard cannot accurately account for an individual's unique physiological makeup or their specific environment. Instead, the physician establishes an individualized baseline for every patient. This is achieved through first principles, primarily pulse diagnosis, to find that specific person's point of equilibrium. Using a population-wide average to diagnose a single, shifting biological system introduces a foundational error into the clinical process. This horizontal wave represents Mach 1, the earth pulse. It serves as the mathematical center of a patient's internal physiological balance. To find this center, the physician calibrates the measurement against their own healthy respiratory rate. One breath provides the timing map for the internal rhythm. Pathology is measured as a specific deviation from this center. A wave frequency dropping below the baseline marks a state of deficiency, known as Hu or Qi. A sharp spike above indicates a state of excess, known as Thuk or Sok. In this model, diagnosis is the precise measurement of how far a patient has drifted from their own personal baseline. Time serves as the next variable in the calculation. The body is a microcosm that reflects the universal flux described in the Kingjik. This cyclical clock maps the Thi Ngat Lu Chu, the 24-hour rotation of energy through the body. Every hour changes the biological state of the patient's internal systems. Yang energy initiates at the Thi hour near midnight. As the morning progresses, solid Yang lines accumulate sequentially on the hexagrams, peaking at midday during the Nga hour. Clinical interventions must align with this hourly vector. Forcing a Yang stimulating treatment when the body is naturally shifting toward Yin creates an internal conflict rather than a cure. For example, the heart meridian, or thumb, is often simplified as a fire element. However, within the 6 Qi system, its activity is calculated using the Thu phase during the Su and Thin hours. Failing to calculate these chronological shifts leads to treatments that are misaligned with the body's natural cycle. Pathology is never static. It travels along a physical vector, either advancing into the body or retreating toward the surface. The Thai Yang, or small intestine meridian, provides a clear example of how these vectors work in practice. As a Yang pathway, the Qi here naturally tends to ascend. To pull this energy downward, the body relies on the density of blood. If the volume of blood is sufficient to anchor the Qi, the flow moves correctly along the meridian. If a pathogen disrupts this balance, the transmission route splits. Excess blood may carry the pathology downward to the bladder, while excess Qi transmits it horizontally toward the heart. By understanding these mechanics, a physician can predict where a disease will move next and intercept it. The temporal variable also operates on a macro scale through the seasonal cycles of the Thurlen. Environmental pathogens often enter the system and remain dormant. A particle of summer heat, for instance, might cross into the body and turn inactive, showing no symptoms for months. It is only when the timeline reaches the cooling temperatures of autumn that this latent heat flares up, expressing itself as a new illness. Clinically, an autumn cough is frequently an expression of this latent summer heat, or feng thur, rather than a new infection. Using standard autumn respiratory remedies on a summer-derived pathogen results in clinical failure because the origin of the disease has been misidentified. Dialectical diagnosis unearths the temporal origin of the pathogen by looking past the patient's immediate symptoms. Lun tree is the synthesis of these findings. It combines the pulse spaceamine, the spatial vector, the hourly phase, and the seasonal latency into a single diagnostic model. This model produces the 8 principles, or Bat-Kung, mapping the exact coordinates of the disease. These coordinates dictate the ratio of the Bat-Fop, the 8 treatment methods. A physician might calculate a formula consisting of 3 parts tonification to 7 parts purging. This calculation determines the formula's success. The physical balancing of the scale reflects the intellectual precision required to match the medicine to the patient's state. The final prescription acts as a calculated counteracting vector, a Nick-Tien intervention designed to return the patient to equilibrium. Eastern medicine functions as an individualized systems biology framework. It views the body as an ecosystem in a state of dynamic equilibrium. Clinical mastery requires moving beyond rote textbook protocols in favor of analytical, first principles thought. True healing is a mathematically precise dialogue between the physician, the patient, and the cycles of the moving universe.